It's about 5 lines up from the bottom of the page. It is 5 lines up from the bottom of the page. So this is Rashi on page 33b. I'm just going back a little. Rashi says, "V'hai de polig lehu b'masnisin b'dalid bavi." This that it divides the Mishnayos into 4 different categories, or literally it would mean bavi would mean like a gate, 4 different categories. It divides the Mishnayos because we see on page 33b is about Arava. On page 32b, it was about the Hadassim. And then before that, it was the Lulav. So we've been dividing everyone up individually. And really, the laws, a lot of them are very similar. You got Gazula, if it's stolen, it seems to apply to all of them. So Rashi's bothered with, why are we dividing these Mishnayos into each one a different category? It would seem that we should put them all maybe in one Mishnah. So he says, Vitani lulav bape nafshe. We learned lulav on its own. That was the first Mishnah. Hadas bape nafshe. Hadas on 32b. In Arava is the one here on 33b. In V'chein Esrog, and also Esrog, it has its own Mishnah. And the Rashi is bothered with, why are we? That's on 34b. So why doesn't it put them all together? V'lo'ira v'tani luhu. Why didn't it mix them together and teach it? Mishum, because the yesh b'chol echad ma she'ein b'chaverei. The reason it did that is because each one has something that makes it unique, what its friend, what the other one doesn't have. And he says, what do I mean? The ilu, because Sinei har habarzel. Sinei har habarzel, with those, the lulav was that lulav that the leaves did not reach the next the next leaves. There was very few leaves on the lulav, and that was it was in the first Mishnah of this chapter. It mentioned Sinei har habarzel on 29b. Sinei har habarzel kasherois, but the Gemara says that only applies if it reaches the leaves reach the next leaves, but if they don't, then they're not going to be kosher. That was a part of the Gemara's qualification for that law, and it was on 32a. The Gemara had mentioned that Abaye, that only if it reaches the next one, you don't have to have so many leaves as long as they at least reach the next one on top of it. So that was Tzine Hara Barzel. So that's a special law. Rashi says Lo shayach ela b'lulav. That law is only applicable to lulav. But on novav merubav miolav, the law about the berries that are majority more than the leaves, Lo shayach ela b'hadas. That's only applicable to a hadas. Doesn't apply to any of the other species. But tzavtzafa, and this tzavtzafa, which we were talking a little about, we'll talk more about today. Well, the tzavtzafa, it seems like it's well, Rashi learns that it's from the family of arava. It's called a min arava, the type of arava plant. It seems that the other Rishonim might argue and say it's not the same min. So it seems that there might be an argument there. Is it really considered? Does Rashi mean literally it's min arava? It's a species of the arava family. And when the other Rishonim say it's they say it's a min acher hadoimel arava. It's really a different min. It's einoi min arava. It seems like they're saying the exact opposite. Like the other Rishonim seem to use this term. It's a einoi min arava, ela min acher hadoimel arava. So it sounds like there might be some argument of what family the tzavtzafa really is. We learned Rashi, and we said it's a type of arava, that it's a min arava, but it's round. Interesting that Rashi picks up on that. That was an earlier Rashi. Anyway, so Rashi says tzavtzafa is only applicable to arava. You don't have that law by the lulav, by the esrog, by the hadassim. It's only by the and then he says va'arla utruma lo shaykh ela be'esrog. The law of arla only applies to an esrog, and we'll see in the Mishnah on the next page, 30. 34b, where it talks about a lulav, where it talks about an esrog that is a orla. So, which is interesting because I think someone asked, maybe David had asked about what about the berries? Would they have the law of Arla? So this Rashi seems to tell us pretty clearly that you don't have a law of Arla on those berries, because you only have Arla. Well, I don't know if it's 100% proof. He says the law of an Arla is only shayach to the yesrog. Maybe you could argue, maybe it's not a good proof because Rashi is only talking about the stalks, maybe. That the actual hadas stalk is not a problem to smell it, even if it's in the first 3 years, or to do the mitzvah with. But maybe that doesn't mean that the fruit, the berry, maybe could have orla. I don't know if it's 100% proof. I have to think about that. But anyway, what Rashi here says is that the esrog is the only one that has this law of orla in truma. Hilkach itzrichu arba bavi. Therefore, it needs 4 different categories, and so that's an important Rashi that he explains, gives us an explanation of why the Mishnahs are being divided up this way. I thought it's a yesodistic, a very important principle that Rashi shares with us over here. Okay, now the brises that we saw, and I did touch upon this, that each one seems to be saying some teaching from the way the wording of the Torah is with regard to Arava. It says Arava is plural, Arve. So the first brisa, this was on 33b, the brisa said Arve Nachal, that grow on the Nachal. And we had Rashi tell us there that it doesn't have to grow on the Nachal. It's a mitzvah for it to grow on the Nachal, which we mentioned was interesting because in other areas of these laws, sometimes we seem to say it means it has to be that way. And here Rashi says, no, it's a mitzvah that it should be that way. So he says, Arve Nachal, that it grows by the stream, that it grows by the stream. Now, seemingly the reason Rashi says that it's only a mitzvah is from the plural, because it says a plural. I mean, Rashi sort of spells this out. He says, however, Shalbal will be kosher because Arve, the plural. So Rashi's understanding that this opinion of the Brisa follows that understanding that Arve is plural, that it'll include also other types of Aravis, other types of these willows that maybe don't grow by the stream. As I mentioned to you, that as far as I know, the Aravis that we get, which I many years ago used to cut for people, they used to pay us 3 cents every arava that we cut. And this was like about an hour drive from Muncie. And we used to have to make packages of 26. And he used to sell it to the stores. And he was so nervous that he was cheating the store. So he would come around, the owner would come around counting to make sure that we were not making packages of less than 26. And then he would sell it to the store for 20 and sell it only 25 of them because he was nervous in case he's one off. He doesn't want to cheat anyone. So he would charge the stores 25, but we always packaged 26. He wanted us to package 26. And this way, even if we made one little mistake. Anyway, so those were the days. So the Aravis there, as far as I know, there's no stream near there. I don't think it grows by a stream. And that those are the most popular Aravis here in America, as far as I know.
Rabbi.
I think he's got a big monopoly. Yeah.
Rabbi.
Yes, David.
You're saying it's a mitzvah to do it. A mitzvah is a commandment. So how can you say it's a mitzvah to do it, but you don't have to do it?
Yeah. You saw that Rashi? It's 2 lines up from the.
No, I didn't see the Rashi. I'm listening to your words. You're saying it's
Well,
a mitzvah to do it, but it's optional. You don't have to do it.
right. I'm going to read to you the Rashi. It's only a one. It's a basically 1 or 2 lines. It says, "Nachale mayim mitzvah bezu." This is a mitzvah to use this. Umihu, however, shall baal kshera. Of baal, it's kosher. Kid lekamon, like it says later on, kidachsiv arvei lashon rabim. It says a plural term. So what does that mean? A good question, David. It says mitzvah. It sounds like you have to do it. And then he says, but however, shall baal is kshera. So generally, the term mitzvah often means command, but sometimes it's used to mean it's a good deed. It's a mitzvah kiyumis. It's a mitzvah that can be fulfilled. It's like it's extra. It's an extra mitzvah. I don't have to do it to do this. If I do it, I get a mitzvah. You know what I mean? It's like it's a command that you're not obligated to fulfill, but if you fulfill it, you get a mitzvah there. There
like
are scenarios.
Mitzvah menahudar.
Well, not always. I'll give you an example. There's a debate if eating matzah throughout Pesach is a mitzvah, right? And I've seen it brought down. The Vilna Gaon is famous. He holds that it's a mitzvah. I've seen it brought in Lubavitch Svarim that it's a mitzvah to eat matzah. Every time you eat matzah, you get a mitzvah. Now, that doesn't mean that you're commanded to eat matzah a whole Pesach and you shouldn't go to sleep. And every minute of the day, you should be eating matzah. You'll get yourself sick. It'd be dangerous. So it's a mitzvah. If you do it when you eat matzah, you get a mitzvah. You know what I mean? It's been more translated as a good deed, as a connection to the Eibishter. Mitzvah and Chassidus is brought down that it means it's a mitzvah. It's a tzivui. It's tzavsa v'chibur. It's connection to Hashem. So, this is one of those times where the word mitzvah doesn't really mean you have to do it. It would mean that if you did it, you fulfilled a mitzvah, or as you want to say, maybe mitzvah min hamuvchar. Here, maybe you could say that. Normally, you don't always say that. Like you wouldn't say you get a mitzvah min hamuvchar to eat matzah throughout Pesach. It's a mitzvah. You did a mitzvah if you ate matzah on the 3rd day of Pesach. You did get a mitzvah according to many opinions. Did you have to? Not necessarily. And if you're not in the mood, I don't know if you should go out of your way to.
I heard a rabbi describe Hashavas Aveda. He says it's a mitzvah to do Hashavas Aveda, but you don't have to spend the entire day looking for lost objects to return. It's right. Only when you fit into the qualification of that you found the lost object, then you have a mitzvah to return it.
Right. I guess you could take that a step further. Even if you found the lost object, do you have to go out all day just walking around the street asking people? You know what I mean? There are ways of returning a lost object. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, they would go to the Beis Hamikdash. There was a place where they would announce it. So a good example. Anyway, so bottom line here is that the Aravos, it seems that the pasuk says Arvei Nachal Gedelim Ala Nachal. So it sounds like the first opinion seems to be saying that would be something of importance. Rashi tells us, but don't think that you have to. So Rashi really minimizes it from just reading the Gemara, the Brisa. You would think that you're really obligated. Arvei Nachal. And Rashi comes along and says, no, it's a mitzvah because really Arvei, plural, will tell us, this opinion would hold that Arvei would tell us that that even if it's not Nachal, even if it's Baal means, literally Baal means it has a husband, but it's supposed to mean content. Like when it's a field, that's a field of Baal means that it has it suffices with rainwater and it doesn't need to be irrigated from external sources. So that would be a field of Baal. Basically means that it's content. It's that's what the field. That's what shel Baal means. So that the concept of an arava growing on a field that doesn't have a a stream. It just is a field that's content with rainwater. There's no stream near it. That is kosher as well. And so that's what Rashi tells us. Now, the Brisa then gives another opinion. Arve Nachal means that its leaf is stretched, is length is pulled like a stream. It's long and narrow. Then the Gemara brought another Brisa that Arve Nachal means literally means Nachal by a stream, but it says all I would know is that a stream would be kosher. How do you know if it's Shalbal and Shalharim? It's from a field that's rainwater irrigated, Baal, or if it's from the mountains. How do you know that would be okay if it's not by a stream? So the answer is, the Gemara says, because it says Arvei Nachal in the plural, Lashon Rabbim. Then the Gemara on page 34a said, Abba Shol says, Arvei Shtayim, that it says Arvei 2, and why does it say plural? Because it's Achas Lulav, Achas Migdosh. One is for the Lulav, one is for the Migdosh. What that means, and it's really something that we're going to learn later, is that by the Beis HaMikdash, they would do a ceremony. And there was a ceremony done besides for the Aravos of the Lulav. There was also Aravos that were besides the Lulav, and they would put those Aravos around the Mizbeach, and so there was a ceremony. We'll learn about it in about 10 pages, and that's the other type of Arava. That's why it says it plural. And the Gemara then says, well, how do the rabbis know about this Migdash if they use the word Arvei for to teach you that other types of Aravais are kosher, not just if it's a Vanachal. All Arvei means plural, all types. So the Gemara says, how do you know that they're kosher? So the Gemara says, Hilchasa Gemiri Lahu. They learn it from a halacha l'maisha Sinai, and he brings a halacha l'maisha Sinai about Arava is a halacha l'maisha Sinai together with Eser Tiyos and Yisachamaim. These are all halacha l'maisha Sinai. Now Tosfos over here says two things. The first Tosfos says that Tosfos says on the top, he says, if this rabbi doesn't hold of the halacha l'maisha Sinai, Abba Shol, because he learns from Arvei that it's plural, that you need Aravos for the Lulav and you need Aravos for the Mizbeach, according to this rabbi, Abba Shol. So how does he know that he doesn't have the halacha l'maisha Sinai? All he has is the word Arvei, plural, that there needs to be two Aravos. How does he know that outside of the Beis HaMikdash you don't do the second one? If you have a halacha l'maisha Sinai, so halacha l'maisha Sinai generally will say, not only do you have lulav, aravos for the lulav, you also have aravos for the Beis HaMikdash, for the mizbeach. That's what the halacha l'maisha Sinai tells you. You know, this is a tradition given from Moshe to at Sinai to pass on to the Jewish people that we need to do aravos additional time. It's halacha. This was what was given over to Moshe. Give us that there's another time you have to do it. Guess what? At the Mizbeach, that's when you have to do it. So he says, okay, and Abba Shol doesn't know of that. He doesn't follow. He doesn't have that tradition. He has from the word. The word Arvei means twice that not only is there a lulav ceremony, but there's also another lulav ritual. There's also another ritual called, it's part of the plural Arvei. There's another ritual with Aravos. So Tosfos says, okay, so where do you go from there? There's a ritual about Aravos, but how do you? So who says it's the Beis HaMikdash? How do you? They learn the Beis HaMikdash from the word Arvei. So Tosfos ends off with a question. He doesn't answer this. So the truth of the matter is, there really is another question that deserves to be answered. Very rarely do we find. It's not supposed to be. They're not supposed to be a machlokes about a halacha l'maisha Sinai. Like the Rambam says, halacha l'maisha Sinai it's a tradition. It's a Maseidah. So how do you have Abba Shol here not having this halacha l'maisha Sinai? So there's an interesting Reb Chaim. There's a commentary on the Rambam. Name was Reb Chaim Brisker. So he touches upon the law of Netar Revoy. See, we know outside of Eretz Yisrael, there's a law of Arla. There's a law regarding the rule of the first 3 years of a fruit tree that you're not allowed to have, you're not allowed to partake of the fruits. Now, the Torah says Arla, the laws of Arla, and seemingly those apply in Eretz Yisrael. And there's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai that says that they apply, that that the 3 years also chutz laretz, Arla's chutz laretz is also halacha l'Moshe Sinai. It's a tradition that we have to keep Arla here in chutz laretz. So if you plant a fruit tree outside of Israel, guess what? You're not allowed to partake of the fruits for the first 3 years. You're not allowed to eat them. Now the law is in Eretz Yisrael that there's a 4th year. Even the 4th year, you can't do regular, can't just go around eating the 4th year's fruit. There's a law that they're similar to Meiser Sheni, where you'd have to go to Yerushalayim and eat them in Yerushalayim for the 4th year. It's called Retiree, the 4th year. The question about what about in Chutz Laretz, outside of Israel, what about the law of Retiree? Would that law apply?
Go to Lakewood.
What is that?
You go to Lakewood.
Go to Lakewood and they do Retiree?
Yeah.
Go to Lakewood. You mean instead of Yerushalayim? Yeah, I thought Aventura, the Yerushalayim of Golos, I thought it was Aventura. But all right. So anyway, yeah. So is there a rule of Retiree? So it's brought so the question is it the halacha l'Moshe Sinai? What exactly does the halacha l'Moshe Sinai teach you about about Arla? Does the halacha l'Moshe, does this tradition teach you that outside of Israel you also have to keep the law of Arla? And if so, then maybe the law of Retiree would apply. But if the halacha l'Moshe Sinai only teaches you that, in other words, does the halacha l'Moshe Sinai extend the law of Arla of Eretz Yisrael to Chutz Laretz, to outside of Israel? Or is it something new? Is the halacha l'Moshe Sinai teaching you a new law? Guess what? Outside of Israel, there's a law called Arla's Chutz Laretz. There's a law of the first 3 years. You're not allowed to benefit from the tree. And so the law of Eretz Yisrael is not really connected to the law of Chutz Laretz. The law of Eretz Yisrael has their laws. And the halacha l'Moshe Sinai is mechadeshes. It gives you a chidush, a new law that is Arla of outside of Israel. So it doesn't say anything about the 4th year. But if you say that the halacha l'Moshe Sinai really is just explaining that outside of Israel, you also have the law of, it's more of an explanation about the law of Arla in Eretz Yisrael applies Chutz Laretz. So if it's explaining it, then there's room to say that the same law applies of Arla. Retiree would also apply. The 4th year would also apply. So the thing is, so possible to say here also that Abba Shaul, he holds, not that he argues on the halacha, he also has a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. But it's not that he has a halacha l'Moshe Sinai to tells you, guess what? Not only is there a law of Arla, let's jump back to now Lulav, of Arava. Not only is there a law of Arava for the Lulav, but there's a law of Arava. He learned from the Pasuk that Arve says not only is there a law of Arava of the willows for the Lulav, there's also a Arava, there's willows as well for the Mizbeach, for the Beis HaMikdash. There's also such a law. That's what he learns from the pasuk. Comes the halacha l'Moshe Sinai and explains how do you do it? Halacha l'Moshe Sinai tells you, guess how to do it. The way you do it is at the mizbeach. In other words, the pasuk says there's an additional ritual called arava, but doesn't say where. How do you do it? So comes the halacha l'Moshe Sinai and tells you that the way to do it is that you do it by the Beis HaMikdash. So Abba Shaul isn't arguing, doesn't say that there's no halacha l'Moshe. He has a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. According to the rabbis, they don't have any source that there has to be an additional ritual with our rabbis. So they have a tradition from Hashem directly through Moshe that, guess what? There's another ritual with our Rava. Do it at the Beis HaMikdash. So they have no source in the Torah for it. It's a tradition that they have from Hashem direct. They have without a source in the Torah. Arve they use for other things. Abba Shaul says, no, I have a source in the Torah. There is another ritual, but the Torah doesn't explain how to do that other ritual. It's Arve, it's plural. There's one Arava for the Lulav, and there's another Arve. There's some other ritual that's supposed to be done with the Arava. Come, the Allah it doesn't tell you, oh, guess what? There's another ritual. I know there's another ritual. The Allah tells you, it explains how to do that ritual. So here, that's the explanation how there's no argument. There's for sure a halacha l'meish mesina. Everyone agrees. And Abba Shaul knows that it has to be in the Beis Hamikdash. You don't do the second ritual outside. How does he know that? Because of that halacha l'meish mesina. He just doesn't have it as a source. So again, Tosfos was thinking that he's arguing that there's no such halacha l'meish mesina. But the way, according to Reb Chaim, according to the way Reb Chaim explains Neta Ravoy and Arla, Chutz La'aretz, you could say the same thing over here. It's not my own insight. I heard it from a Rav in I heard it from a shiur, from a lecture from a Rav in the Five Towns, I think he is. Anyway, it's a nice little insight to answer Tosfos's question. Okay. So now comes the next Tosfos. The next Tosfos says that the Gemara had asked, how do the rabbis learn that the Beis Hamikdash needs this special ritual for the Aravos? Tosfos says, the Gemara asks this question on the rabbis. What about asking the other way? What do the rabbis do with the word arve? The rabbis learn that it says plural, arve. That doesn't only mean a nachal, arve nachal, willows that grow by a stream. The rabbis learn that arve teaches you that it also includes willows that grow not by the stream. That's what Arve teaches, according to the rabbis. So Tosfos is bothered. Why didn't the Gemara ask the same thing on Abba Shaul? How do you know that Arve also includes other types of Aravos? Maybe it only can mean the ones that grow by a stream, and that's it. So he says, you know why? Maybe the Gemara doesn't ask that, because maybe he doesn't really hold that you're allowed to use other types of Aravos. It has to grow by a stream. This is Tosfos's understanding. He says these Gemaras here are very precise in the way these rabbis' insights are very precise in the way their opinion is, that only what they say is what they hold, and the other opinions they don't seem to hold of. So he says there's another teaching, Arve. It says plural, that it shows you need to have two Aravis, because it says plural, Arve. Arve means you need two. How many Aravis do we use? We use two. How do you know that? So that one of the sources is because it says plural, or maybe the source. The source is because it says Arve, plural, that you need two. So he says, now there is an opinion, Rabbi Akiva, who holds you don't need two. You use one Arav. We don't hold that. We don't hold like that. Everyone, if you go to Shul, you see someone using one Arava, very questionable if they're fulfilling the mitzvah, even though there is maybe one opinion that holds we follow Rabbi Akiva. It's a Ramban, but that's not the accepted view. And so we seem to follow this idea that you need to have two, this halacha, that this interpretation that you need to have two, and that's why it says plural, arve. So Tosfos is all of a sudden has this big problem. He says, so if we hold arve means two aravos, then we also are stuck in the same category as Abba Shaul, that guess what? You need to use aravos that grow by a stream, because we're using the word arve for a specific purpose to teach you need two aravos. So that means that you don't use the word arve plural to allow you to use aravos that don't grow by a stream. It comes out that maybe according to us, if you need two aravos, that means pick who you holding like. If you hold that all you need is one arava, fine. Then you could use then you use arve. The word arve, plural, teaches you it doesn't have to be by a stream. You could get araves that come from sadebal, horim. You could get araves that come from mountains. But if you hold that it has to be you need to have two, that means that's the meaning of the word arve. The plural is used to use two. So then you can't use the word the plural to teach you that you're allowed to use different types of araves that even don't go by stream. This is Taisha's question. Yes, Mordechai.
Yeah, the ones who maintain that willows have to grow by the stream, I guess they could cite the fact that there are a lot of place names called Willowbrook.
You mean rename the city and then you're all set, huh? If you get the government to rename your neighborhood to Willowbrook, then it's okay.
Well, I mean, in other words, I guess like all these places that are named Willowbrook indicate so that willows grow by a source of water.
Yeah, I wonder where they get that from. Willowbrook is that the way it is in today's day and age? Most willows grow by because it's brought down in the commentaries. I just wonder if that same thing applies now. Especially because this big business is probably taking over all the willows. Our rabbis for the he supplies the whole United States with our rabbis. I wonder if he might have changed the landscape of willows. But anyway, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, they also grow slach in Muncie, like there's
evergreen.
Well, right, like there's this company called in Muncie there's a street called Phyllis Terrace, and there's a company called Phyllis Pine Slach.
He supplied the whole country. Do you know in any given year how many aravas he sold?
No, I don't know. I wouldn't know. Okay, so anyway, so Taisus over here is bothered with this big problem now because we've just created. In other words, what Taisus has proven is based on the Gemara that the Gemara does not ask. Well, how does Abba Shaul know about other types of aravas that don't grow by a stream? It must be that Abba Shaul holds that you can't use those type of aravas, and the Gemara has no reason to ask that question. When it comes to the Mizbeach having another arava ritual, having a willow ritual by the Mizbeach, by the altar in the Beis Hamikdash, so that the Gemara assumes everyone agrees with. So even he doesn't have the Gemara says the rabbis must hold of it. Gemara answers halacha l'meshabisina. But the fact that you have that aravos that grow not by a stream, that could be that he doesn't hold of it. Okay, he doesn't hold of it. Would make sense because he uses the word arve for a different purpose. He has arve to teach you about the hadas, the aravos of the lulav and aravos of the Beis Hamikdash. So he doesn't have the arve for that. He says the same thing would apply to the rabbis who learn arve nachal means two, that you need to have two and not one. It says plural, it means two. So we also aren't going to hold of that same law. So if so, now we have to be careful. So Taisa says, according to this, you have to be careful to take aravos for your lulav only the ones that grow by the nachal, by the stream, because we're not darshaning two drushes from the same letter, arve, the plural. Now, this is the way Taisa seems to understand it, that maybe you need to have, according to this understanding, and that's his source. His source is the fact that the Gemara doesn't go back and forth and allow the other rabbis to agree with these rabbis. The Gemara doesn't go back and forth. It must be they don't hold of it. So that's Taisvus's understanding. Now, I did mention to you the Rush, and the Rush holds that it can't be. He takes the practical side of it. He says no one uses aravos that grow by these streams. We don't have. Where do you see anyone ever trying to get aravos by the stream? It's not something that we do. It must mean that it's that the aravos by the stream. Aravos by the stream mean it's a type of, as maybe as Mordechai was saying, they're called willow brooks. That's the type of willow that it is. It's commonly the way it normally grows is by the stream, so it's called a willow brook, or it's called a brook willow. That's the type of willow that it is. Not that it has to physically grow by the stream. Okay, so that's the discussion here. And now then the Gemara mentioned about the halacha l'maaseh Sinai. Then we had the next Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan. I'm going to start there, actually, even though we really did a lot of it. Let's start there. We're 5 lines from the top of the page. We are on 34a. 34a, 5 lines from the top of the page of 34a. Tanu Rabbanan. The rabbis taught in a brisa. The rabbis taught in a brisa. Arvei Nachal, the aravos of a stream. Brook willows. Hagadelois al hanachal. They grow by a stream. That's what it means. Arvei Nachal means hagadelois al hanachal prat letzaptzefa. That excludes tzaptzefa. Hagadela ben aharim. What's tzaptzefa? Tzaptzefa are this type of according to Rashi, it's a type of willow. According to the other commentaries, it's a species that's similar to a willow.
Willow-like.
It's similar. It's like a willow-like. Okay, and it's called a tzaptzefa. And the Gemara says it grows by the mountains. Interestingly enough, Rashi on the Mishnah said that what is tzaptzefa? Rashi said that it means olah shalah is ogul. Its leaf is rounded. That's what's unique about the tzaptzefa. Now our Gemara is going to say really 3 things that are unique. So the commentaries are bothered with why Rashi jumped to that one differentiation of this tzaptzefa, that its leaf is round. The Gemara is going to say 3 things about it. But anyway, now the term that our Gemara says, but tzaptzefa is a hagadela ben aharim that grows between the mountains. That's what the Gemara's term is. That tzaptzefa that grows between the mountains. It's not a gedelos al hanachal. It's not a willow that grows on the stream. It's a tzaptzefa which grows by the mountains, and that's excluded because it says arvei nachal. It has to be a rabbi that grows, so it excludes a tzaptzefa. Amar Reb Zera Mikra. So Reb Zera says, so what's the source that tzaptzefa you should exclude it? How do you know to exclude it? And Rashi had added over here, arvei is plural. Maybe it should include it because you have a plural word, arvei. So the Gemara says, kachamayim rabim tzaptzefa somoy. So this was a poetic wording in the book of Yechezkel, and it says over there that kachal mayim rabim means take on the branch, that tree that grows on many waters. Kachal mayim rabim, and tzaptzefa samai, and you took a tzaptzefa. I wanted you to take the kachal mayim rabim, something that grows on many waters, and tzaptzefa samai, and they use the tzaptzefa. They placed the tzaptzefa. So you see that it's really different. It's worse than a arava. And the Gemara explains it a little more soon. How do you know that it's something else? Sometimes when it says 2 things right next to each other, the second thing is like explaining what it means. The first thing, so maybe it's explaining it. Kachamayim rabim, take something that grows on many waters. In umaynihu tzaptzefa, maybe it's not saying like a comma there and then tzaptzefa samai. No, maybe it's like the comma goes after it. Maybe it's take something that grows on many waters, tzaptzefa. Like that's what we're referring to. Maynihu, what is that? That's tzaptzefa. The Gemara says, yeah, but then what do you do with the next word? Imkein mai samai. What does it mean? Samai. They took tzaptzefa, so it must mean that tzaptzefa samai goes together. And the first part is saying one thing, and the second part of the verse is saying another thing. And our Rebavo now explains it. Amar Rebavo, what this means is, I wanted the Yidden They should be like a tree that grows on many waters, very, should be connected with and full and everything, all the blessings. Umay nihu arava. What is that? Arava that it should grow well. Vehein samu atzman ketzavtzefa shebaharim, and they place themselves. They set themselves up like a just a tzavtzefa of the mountains, which is much worse. It's just not as which is nowhere near as good.
The Gemara does not like tzavtzefa.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
would you like to see a picture of a tzavtzefa?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So on the top there is the regular arava,
Okay.
and then on the
Right.
bottom here
Long
is
and
it
narrow.
tzavtzefa.
Got to push it up, but we don't see the bottom. No, that's a white willow.
That's what they're saying is it's tzavtzefa.
Oh, really? That's how they're explaining it.
See how good it is?
It doesn't look so rounded. I would have expected it to be more rounded. A white willow they're claiming is a tzavtzefa. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's for a buckies. You should have to go to a Rav.
See, it says a tzavtzefa, however, is one of the species of willow that's most distant from the willow, fit for use in performing the mitzvah, both in the shape of its leaves and its branches. It's apparently one of the forms referred to today as the white willow.
Yeah. Yeah, just to me, it doesn't look as so rounded. I would have expected it to be more rounded. At least the end, it looks quite pointy. Anyway, okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the picture.
It's one opinion.
Wasn't it also
Right.
that it was sharp, that it was cutting, so they looked
Yeah, well,
like
the sword at the edge, but that it's you don't really see so clearly from this picture. But I think if
serrated.
does it show serrated edges in that on that picture? Because no matter how big you make it, we're gonna lose it's get pixelated. But if you look in your own computer screen, you probably can see. Do you see the pixel? Do you see the serration at the edges?
I don't know.
Too hard to see. It's on a
It's too
computer.
hard to see.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe Avraham, you have the book. Do you see serrated edges on that picture of the white willow?
No, I can't. So it's small.
It's so small, huh? Right? You can't really tell. Anyway, bottom line is, I've seen aravos that they sell for Hashanahs here, and sometimes they look a little serrated edges. So I'm like, questionable if that is really acceptable. It does not look like they don't look like the proper aravos. So if sometimes they sell them a little cheaper, I'm like, that's better. I'd rather pay the extra $1 or $2 and get the others that I'm 100% sure are aravos than these that look like serrated edges. But they come with their stamp on it, so it sounds like someone, some Rav gave his acceptance, said this is not a problem. I don't know.
you'll have somebody alongside you in Gehenna.
Anyway, so okay, so that was a story with this with the tzavtzefa that the Gemara says. Hashem said, "I want you to be like kach al mayim rabim, and like a tree al mayim rabim, and they made themselves like a tzavtzefa." Now there is some sefer here that says an interesting pshat. He says that I wanted that even the ones that are empty of mitzvahs, which the arava stands for, the arava symbolizes, the willow symbolizes those that are empty of mitzvahs and of Torah, that I wanted them to be gedalim al mayim rabim, that they should be growing on many waters, meaning that they should be relying on the great rabbis. They should have a connection to the chachmei hadar, to the mayim rabim, to the great, to those that grow on many waters. And what did they do? They made themselves like a tzaftzfa that they laugh at the metzafsef, which is another term of like chatting against and speaking negative against Hashem and against his prophets. So instead, they made themselves like a tzaftzfa shebaharim, a tzaftzfa of the mountains. And so that's the vart that Hashem said. I wanted them at least to have a connection. It's an interesting chassidish vart. Even those that are empty, at least they have a connection to their Rebbe. At least they have some type of a kamayim rabim. They're like a car. They're like I wanted them. At least they should be al mayim rabim. That they should be like those that grow on many waters. At least they have great rabbis and connected to their rabbis, to their rebbes. And what did they do? They became. Instead they laugh at the rabbis, and that's what Yechezkel was rebuking them, or Hashem was rebuking them. Okay, so the Gemara then says, Ika Damasi lahai kra masnisa. Some say that this pasuk actually is part of that brisa. It's basically the same thing. Kacha mayim rabim tzaftzfa samai. That the pasuk says kacha mayim rabim and tzaftzfa samai. So that's a proof that tzaftzfa is not acceptable for the mitzvah, because it says I wanted you to take something that grows on many waters, and tzaftzfa samai, you took tzaftzfa. You see, it's an inferior product. Yeah, Maskef lo Reb Zera. Reb Zera says v'dilma perusha kama parish, and on this Reb Zera asks that maybe the pasuk is just explaining, is saying what mayim rabim is, that tzaftzafan. It's not an inferior product; it's a good product. It's a tzaftzafan. I want you to grow on mayim rabim, and that's tzaftzafan. So that's Reb Zera's question. The earlier Gemara said that was Rabbi's question. The way the other version of it is that this is Reb Zera's question, and that perusha kama parish kacha mayim rabim. I knew what is that tzaftzafan. So the Gemara says, "Imkein mas my samai." How do you fit the next word in? It doesn't fit. So therefore, you have to learn it this way, and that's the understanding that tzaftzafah is a inferior product. So Amar Rabavo, and Rabavo explains it. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu. This is the second version, which is basically the same as the first. Hashem says, I thought I said that the Yidden should be like a kach al mayim rabim, that they grow on many, like a tree that grows on many waters. What is that? That's an arava. And they made themselves like a tzaftzafah shebaharim, and they grow. They became like tzaftzafas. So you see, tzaftzafah is an inferior product. Yes,
I have some better pictures for you.
Better pictures,
All right.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take it. If it takes a minute. Yeah, here you do see the serrated edges. Right. They're very good. Yes, that was nice. These are nice and clear. Okay, shkoyach. Okay, so now the next Gemara says, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught in a brisa, Izo arava v'Izo tzaftzafah. What is an arava? What is a tzaftzafah? Arava is kaneh shelo odoim. The arava, its stem is red, and that's one of the things that people do look for when they, people who want to be extra careful on everything, and all the daled minim, and they pay extra. So one of the things that they would look for is sometimes they're more, you find aravas that are red, and sometimes they're not really so red. So that's one thing that if you want to be mahadir, so the arava is a stem that has a red has a stem that's red. Now, many of them are green. They're cut off a little young, a little premature, so maybe they didn't get red yet. The red comes from the sun hitting it. So if it's not white, they say that it's kosher, but nevertheless, it seems like there might be like an Indian to have it more red, or people maybe just do it for purpose of distinguishing it, making it being sure that it's the right thing. But anyway, so one of the simanim, one of the signs of an arava is that its kana, its stem is red, and va'ala shala mashuch, and the leaf is more long and narrow. It's mashuch literally means pulled, but it means it's long and narrow. And upia, and its edges are cholak, are smooth. They don't have serrated edges. Tzaftzava, and tzaftzava seems to have all of these problems. Kana shala lavan, its stem is white. And tzaftzava kana shala lavan, v'ala shala agol, its leaf is round. And upia daima lamagol, and its edges are similar to a magol, to a sickle, which basically means that it has a serrated edges.
Rabbi,
Now,
Rabbi,
yes, yeah.
When you say that it's rounded, do we have a picture for that?
In other words, how round does this leaf, is it referring to? Yeah. My understanding, well, yeah, I don't know. David, do you have because yours didn't show pictures of rounded. They seem to be
lenticular, as they say.
And what does that word mean?
It's very, very elongated.
Uh-huh.
No, I just see the ones that I showed you. They're all serrated like that.
Yeah, I actually have a picture that I don't know how you would see it. I have a picture here, but I don't know if it would be possible to show. Let me just see if that would work.
I know that we
my background.
when we look for aravot,
what?
Said when we look for the aravot, we know we look for the leaf to be long and thin, but I really haven't seen one.
Right.
I don't know what it would look like. So maybe if you show something, at least we have some idea of.
Right. Well, the picture that I see here, they're picking I don't know. I would not have even thought that this is an arava. So I'm not convinced that their example is a tzaptzfa. Again, it's hard to know, but they seem to have a picture of some type of a leaf that's more like a hamantash.
Rounded?
It looks like a hamantash.
Is it rounded or is
Not
it
perfectly rounded,
overly elongated? I'm only wondering.
It's not long and narrow.
Stretched out.
It's not long and narrow. The picture they have this Gemara that is supposed to be a very advanced Gemara called the Masifta Shas.
Right.
So this Gemara has a picture and it shows like a hamantash type of shape. And the hamantash has 3 corners.
Rounded.
2 of the corners are somewhat rounded, and the end of it, that corner, I don't know what it's called on a triangle. That the far end corner, is there a term for that corner? That corner is sharp. So the other 2 corners are rounded, and so it looks like a hamantash. The leaf looks triangle, and 2 of the corners are rounded. So that's their picture. I would have more my understanding, the way I was imagining, was not based on this picture. It was that the instead of the leaf ending in a point, that the end of it would be rounded. That was what I was imagining. That's what it meant, rounded. And I wasn't expecting it to look like a circle leaf, but I was expecting it to be at the end. It would be more rounded than sharp. But anyway, I don't see. I'm not in the field of. We live in regular city, regular town here, so we don't have willows growing all over. Okay, so basically, tzaftzfa has 3 problems. One is that it's white, its stem is white. One is that its olla is rounded, its leaf is rounded, and the other one is that piha doima lamagol, that its edges are serrated. Now the Gemara says The Gemara asks a contradiction. Tanya, didn't we learn in a brisa? There was a brisa that said that if the leaf is doimel magol, if it's similar to a magol, which is the sickle, then it is kosher. And doimel masor is what's puzzle. If it's similar to a saw, then it's puzzle. And the understanding is that a sickle, all of the sharp serration is facing backwards, like because when you cut with a sickle, you only do one type of motion. When you cut with a saw, you go back and forth. So the sickle is only it's when you pull it back to you, so it's going to cut. It's going to cut everything off when you. And so the edges are facing the handle. The sharp serrations are facing the handle. By a saw, they're all equal. You cut this way, you cut that way. It goes both. It works. A saw works both ways. A sickle works one way. So the Gemara, the Brisa that says that if it's all facing one direction, the serration, that's not a problem. It's when it's like a saw that it could be like the edges are more straight down, and that would be, in other words, it's like each direction. It looks like it could go in both directions. That would be what's puzzle. That would make this edges of the hadas invalid. So that doesn't fit with the way we just with what we just quoted from a brisa where it said that the problem with tzaptzufa was pia doimel magol, that's similar to a magol, and here the brisa says magol is not a problem. It's when it's masor that's the problem. So the Gemara answers, Amar Abai Kitanyahi, when did we learn that brisa? That if it's similar to a magol, that it's kosher, that's a certain type of arava. The chilfa gila, this chilfa gila, where they all the serrated edges face backwards, that would not be a problem. And what the brisa talked about, similar to a magol, that is puzzle, that is talking about all regular types of aravos, that it's supposed to be smooth, and that is the kosher type of arava, and that's the story. That's the Amar Abaye Shma Mino Haychul Fagila Kosher Loishana. You see from here, the Brisa says, if that's the explanation, that you have this contradiction, and we understand that it's referring to Chilfa Gila. So he says, you see that that it must be that Chilfa Gila is kosher for Ishana, even though it does seem to have this serrated edge. But the Gemara says Pshita, obviously, this is what we just concluded from that brisa. So isn't that obvious? What are you adding now? Abaye told us that the brisa is referring to this. That chilfa gila is kosher if it's a magol, if it's serrated like a sickle. The other aravos are not kosher. So then Abai says, and let me say something. You know what we see from here? We see that chilfa gila is kosher. What do you mean? We see this from here? That's what you just said a minute ago. You said that it's kosher. Now you say, we see from here that it's kosher. You just told me a minute ago that it's kosher. So the Gemara is saying, Pshita, isn't that obvious? You don't have to go make another statement. We see from here that it's kosher. You're the one who just said it, that it's kosher. You said, Kitanya hi chilfa gila. So the Gemara says, yeah. Now the Tame I would have thought, Hoil vis l'shem Levi, but since it has another name to it, and in other words, Chilfa is the name of Aravas. Chilfa is a term used for Arava, but Gila is added to it. So since it has that additional name, we should say that it's not going to be kosher, and you can't fulfill the mitzvah of Arava because it has a different Kamash Malon comes and lets us hear that nevertheless it is going to be kosher. Now, the Gemara says, maybe it really should not be kosher. It has that other name to it. It's not a regular arava. So the Gemara answers, it says plural, and that we're going to include, even if it has a name that is not arava, it adds a name, which normally means that it's a different type. because the fact that you add a name to it means that this is not the typical arava. This is a different type of arava. Nevertheless, the Gemara says, but it says arve, plural. So arve will allow us to include this type of arava called the chilfa gila. Okay, we're going to stop here. Zaygesund, everyone. Yes.
This sapsifus, which is translated as a white willow.
Yeah.
So I see on Amazon, they have, if you put in white willow, there's a whole ton of listings that are listed as alternative pain reliever.
Uh-huh. Oh, so
They
maybe
include,
it's popular.
Yeah, the main ingredient is something called salicin, SALICIN,
Uh-huh.
which is a pain reliever. It's related to aspirin, but it's in a safe form. And there's there's like dozens and dozens of brands of white willow.
That's where the word salicin comes from, the Latin word for willow.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Salix in Latin means willow.
Uh-huh. That's so interesting that's like it's like aspirin probably just like has to hide that in order to make them
in a safe form.
Oh,
In a safe, natural form.
Uh-huh. Very interesting. All right, very good.
Thank you.
David.
Have a good day.
it's called salicylic acid.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.